Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So I'm very happy to be here again together for participating in our discussion of our most holy scripture, the Srimad Bhagavatam. And first of all, let me offer my due respects, first of all, to my senior masters and the Vaishnavas in general and all the participants. Om Gyan Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalaka Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankhate Girim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Paramananda Madhavam He Guru Gyanada Dinabandhu Swananda Data Karunakashindo Brindavanasim Hitavataram Prasidaradha Pranaya Pracharam. So, after so many difficult theoretical or even frightening topics, like last time we discussed the 4 different types of the, so to say, the end of the world. This is a very bitter, very frightening topic. Finally, today, we had found a more promising topic. And for today, our, our discussion is about deliverance, liberation, achieving kind of perfection. In one word, this is Mukti or Moksha. So we can say that, of course, our scripture, the Srimad Bhagavatam, discusses this topic as deliverance from the material entanglement is part of the 10 main topics of each Mahapurana. But if we reflect a little bit back to the original Vedic revelation or the Vedas themselves, we can say that moksha doesn't really play an essential part of the text of the Veda, because there the objective is to achieve a kind of good life, heavenly life, so to say, beyond the present lifetime on this earth. And very rarely return or transmigration is discussed in the old type Vedic tradition. So we can say, if there is no samsara, if there is no transmigration of the soul, if there is no material entanglement, then why to speak about liberation? Then there's no real use and no real meaning of liberation. But as soon as the concept of repeated birth and death appears in the understanding, then the question of moksha or liberation from this very severe law of nature is of prime importance. Then liberation is very important if we understand that we are in a state of bondage. As soon as we understand the lack of freedom, the question of freedom becomes so important. So therefore, if there is no samsara, then there is no question of mukti, right? But if we understand samsara is there, then immediately we can search for the answer to the problem of repeated birth and death, and that is actually liberation. So first, we shall pay some little attention to the dictionary meanings of the word mukti and moksha, and also to the spiritual meaning of moksha. Let's start with this one. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, the spiritual meaning of moksha or freedom, liberation is, first of all, the freedom from the influence of the gross and the subtle bodily existence. So I think this is a very realistic approach. If we understand that the soul is inside the body, bodily conditions, body-mind complex, then under this influence, until you are under this influence, you are lacking your freedom. But as soon as you get rid of this bodily influence, that is freedom. So this is the first, and we can say a very practical approach of moksha, but it describes only the negative side of moksha. What is not? No material influence, right? No bodily influence. But what is the positive meaning of moksha? We have to search for that. And the second, the more delicate explanation about moksha is to regain the original spiritual position of the soul. So this is the positive meaning of moksha, when we regain the original half lost or lost by illusion original position of our spiritual existence. And from this we understand that it's not only rejecting the material influence, but rather to accept the spiritual position, the spiritual influence. It is said that human beings are always under the influence. Some kind of influence is always there. Or we have to be very selective about the influence, and instead of the material kind of influence, better we choose the spiritual influence. This is supported by the Gita, where it is said that the great souls, the Mahatmas, they choose the influence of the divine nature. Mahatmanas to Mamparta, Daivim Prakriti Mashrita. They take shelter of the divine nature. So in the same way, we can say that this is already a liberated state of consciousness, a liberated state of existence, when we are under the divine influence. So this we have to fix and understand first, that this is the positive meaning of liberation in general. And now let's pay a little attention to the dictionary, the grammatical meaning of the word mukti first. There are 7 different meanings. I will not tell all the 7, just a few, because in general this is freedom, liberation. We know this. Also, a final emancipation from the transmigration of the soul. So that is like a theological freedom. Giving up something or avoiding another meaning. And something that is very interesting for us is unlocking or opening. So to unlock something or open something like a gate. And also the 7th meaning is paying off a debt. So I think this is very practical. When you are in debt, you don't feel free. You feel like obliged. But as soon as you pay off your debt, not only financially, but also in a moral sense, in human relationships, or in the spiritual sense, then you feel free. So this paying off a debt, I think it's very, very meaningful, and it helps us to understand what is real freedom. When you're not obliged by any duties, because you had paid off your debt incurred by the material birth. Because if we had taken birth, we are indebted, right? If we live under the conditions of material nature, we are indebted. So pay off the debt of existence, material existence, and then you are free. And here comes the 2nd meaning, which I want to stress, is opening or unlocking, right? So if a door, if a gate is locked, that means you cannot enter. But if the door is open in front of you, that means you also have the right to enter. So paying off your debt to the material existence will open the gate of spiritual life, right? So with this word mukti, both sides are included. Pay off the debt of material existence, be free from all entanglement, and this will open the gate to enter the spiritual realm. So I think it's very useful to pay some attention on these meanings as well. And now we go to the other word, and the other word is moksha. Usually we use this both mukti and moksha. And also here we find the general meanings like liberation, freedom, final emancipation, etc., as we discussed. But some special meanings, again, I would like to point out. One is death. Yes. So that means until we live, more or less, we are obliged by certain conditions, by certain debts, as I mentioned before. And mostly, we can identify moksha after the death, after finishing, completing one life circle. So this final emancipation will come after our leaving the body, in case we had accomplished our spiritual journey. Otherwise, um, death is not the beginning of free life, but a beginning of a next chapter. So better we accomplish the journey and we achieve liberation properly. And the other meaning of moksha that I want to stress is from astrology, because it says um, moksha is the liberation of an eclipsed planet. So when the eclipse is finished of the moon, for example, then it achieves a kind of liberation. So I think it's very nicely symbolic, because until our consciousness is eclipsed by illusion, again, we are not free. We are not in a liberated state. But as soon as the darkness of illusion or ignorance is removed, then we can say that our consciousness is revealed in the original pure state. So I think all these symbolic meanings are very useful to remember. Why we examine the grammatical meanings of these words, they will not help us to achieve the liberated state, but they will help us, these meanings will help us to remember what is our goal, to remember what is the purpose here. Because the purpose in this material life, in this human form of life, is definitely to accomplish a journey successfully. And as devotees, we understand that we should go beyond the four goals of human life, where moksha is included. But we shall return to that point a little later. So all these meanings of the word signify some kind of freedom, some kind of deliverance, some kind of emancipation from different entanglements, from different obligations, from a limited, conditioned state of mind, and also to achieve a kind of freedom, a free state of existence, right? So what represents the most difficult influences in this material world? These are the Maya, karma, Guna influences. And, the Gunas are three in number. The very crude, very thick, very strong material type of condition. This is like the tamas. And then the more energetic influence, the rajas. And finally, the more bright guna, this is the sattva. So they are three. The nirodha, the end of certain cycles, is four in number, as we discussed last time. So this elementary, the permanent, the ultimate, and the final end of the word. And if you remember all these differences, I think it's very practical to remember again. But after these three types of gunas, four types of nirodha or withdrawal, finally we come to moksha, which is five in number. We identify five different types of liberation, And that again shows that our philosophy, our theology is so wise, so detailed. It's not only one type of general liberation, but there are very subtle aspects of liberation, very subtle aspects of perfected life. And probably you all know these different types, but just to mention, you can achieve um, um, a similar opulence like God. So a kind of divine opulence. You can achieve a similar body. So in the emancipated, in the enlightened state, in spiritual perfection, you are similar to divine personalities, bright, eternal, etc., etc. So divine beauty is there. Or you can achieve similar, you can reside on the same planet, on the divine planets. Or you can also achieve the personal contact of the Supreme. So there are different types of relationships, because for us, liberation means a relationship, and that's for sure. The original state of the soul is to be connected. It's not an empty space. It's not a vacuum. For us, liberation is not a vacuum to achieve a zero state of existence. No. For us, liberation is to achieve a complete and full of existence state of perfection. So relationship is the basis of our liberation. Relationship is the basis of our moksha. And all these different types of similar bodily features, or close contact, living in the personal presence of God, etc., means different grades of relationship. And you know that from these 5 different types of liberation, 4 is accepted today by the Vaishnavas. So the Salokya, Sarshti, Samipya, Muktis are accepted, except the Sayujya. Sayujya, today, Sayujya means a kind of merging into the existence of God, like when the drop of water is returning to the ocean. So that kind of merging, that one. And usually Vaishnavas do not appreciate that type of union very much. We call it, by theological explanation, we call it an impersonal type of liberation, when you lose, so to say, you lose your spiritual identity and you merge into this existential feature of the Supreme. So this is Sayujya today. But we have to pay attention, because only a few hundred years back, Sayujya was very much accepted by the Vaishnava Acharyas. In the Govinda Bhashya of the Vedanta Sutram, for example, Sayujya is considered as a very positive spiritual achievement, like to develop a very close contact with the Supreme. So if we understand Sayujya in that sense, to achieve a very close, very intimate contact with our beloved God, then we don't need to reject even that type of moksha. So we have to be very precise here, and we have to understand what is what. In philosophy, we shouldn't mix, and we shouldn't make mistake in defining or understanding properly the words and the ideals. It is very important to understand properly what is what. So just in the recent past, Sayujya Mukti was very well accepted in our line as well. So please try to understand this in such a manner. And if we can develop that kind of very close contact without losing the identity, then it's also a positive achievement. So the historical change of the connotation, the historical change of the meaning is also important to consider, to understand properly what is what. And but actually these are only words about liberation. It's not enough to think or to speak of that liberated state of existence, but we have to achieve that. So for us, this is not a theory. For us, this should be a practice. But again, we can say that if mukti, if liberation is a reintegration into the divine reality, I think we can all agree in that point, then again, we should stress that this is a very positive achievement. And we can examine moksha from two different points of view. We can say that moksha is a result, and we can also say that moksha is a beginning, right? So moksha is a result, or moksha as a beginning. So why I say that moksha is a result? In this human form of life, our sages and our tradition identifies four different types of human ambitions, four different types of goals of life. These are the purusharthas, the meaning or the ideals in human form of life. Dharma, the basic moral principles or duty or religion, we can say in general. And artha is the second, to be useful, to be prosperous in life. And then kama is there, your emotional side of your life. I think it's very important for people in general, because we are basically emotional beings. And finally, the fourth goal is liberation or moksha. So dharma, artha, kama, and moksha are the four main goals of human life. But we have to add one more, the real meaning of life, the real purpose to achieve, and this is prem. So you can see, if you live properly according to the moral code of for human beings, don't lead a sinful life, cooperate with the rules of nature and also God, divinity. If you are useful in that sense, if you are controlled and purified in your emotional relationships, then you can most probably achieve moksha, the fourth goal. But what is the meaning? What is the positive meaning of this realized freedom to enter into the realm of love, divine love? So for us, this is the fifth goal and the ultimate goal, the most important goal, divine love. So moksha is a result. If you live properly, if you purify your life, if you are useful in a proper sense, then you can achieve moksha. Good action, proper activities will bring you the state of liberation, right? So in that sense, moksha is a result. But what can we say about moksha as a beginning, or as a side effect. Better I say a side effect. Because on the Purushartha list, as the goals or ambitions of human life, this is one main goal. To achieve liberation is one main goal. When there is no material influence, and there is no bodily restrictions, freedom, right? So it's a main purpose beyond dharma, artha, and kama. But what about bhakti? From our teachers, we understood that we are not searching for liberation in general. Because mostly all the religious processes and all the religious practitioners, they are searching for liberation. They are searching for moksha, except the Vaishnavas. We are not searching for moksha in general or as a main objective of our spiritual practice, because we search for the chance of divine love. We search for prema. And Rupa Goswami explains that the side effect of prema is liberation. So it's very simple. It's not that first you have to achieve liberation and then you can practice devotional service. No, it's the opposite. If you practice properly the devotional service, liberation will also come. And strange enough, this is like a shadow. If you want to run away from your shadow, it will follow you. So in a similar way, a devotee is not running after liberation, and therefore liberation will run after the devotee, right? But if you want to catch your shadow, you are unable to catch your shadow. So if you want to run after moksha, it's almost impossible to achieve, right? Because it's very, very difficult to be fully purified, to lose the last one condition of material life. Very difficult. Well, therefore, the more proper way to achieve this secondary result is to search for the chance of divine love, because the secondary result of prema is that you will automatically achieve moksha as well. And let me quote the Brahma Samhita on these types of moksha. What is the inner meaning of a devotional moksha? What is the inner meaning of liberation for us? It's a very beautiful verse. Actually, the last verse from the Govindam Adi Purusham beautiful hymns and mantras. This is the number 55. It says, I worship the original Lord Govinda. And all those who meditate over him will achieve a perfected state of bodily existence, according to their meditation. So if they meditate according to natural friendship or affection, amorous passion, or parental affection, like father and mother, or even by illusion. So if somebody has a misconception about God, or reverence, awe and reverence, or the willingness of service, they will attain a body accordingly, according to the nature of their contemplation. So this is the meaning of moksha for us, to be integrated back into the divine reality and to start our uh, relationship, divine relationship, service mood in the spiritual sky. So it's a very positive meaning for us. And the scale of liberation that is mentioned here is very, very broad. It's very wide. Because you can see, if you have a misconception, you can achieve liberation even according to a misconception. If you have like the Vatsalya mood, you can achieve liberation like that. If you have like a good friendship with the Lord, you can be a friend in the eternal sky, etc., etc. So different routes, different approaches you practice, and you can achieve accordingly. So of course, this is a very high um, understanding and a very high spiritual practice to identify our relationship and try to practice accordingly. But actually, there is always a call from the Supreme, and the more refined the more sensitive we are to hear, to perceive that the divine call, then you can answer, you can develop that type of attitude as you are invited. So therefore we continue chanting the holy names, we continue chanting the Mahamantra, because this is the way to purify our spiritual understanding, right? So in this way we can revive the original consciousness, and this will help us to fine-tune the spiritual ideals and to find properly our place in the service of the divine couple. And from these very high ideals, let me return to some worldly concepts. Because if we examine human beings in general, we can say that freedom is very important for them. Although in the material sky we perceive only an illusion of freedom, but still that illusion of the freedom is also very important. It's very sweet for people in general. And if we are curbed in our freedom, then very hardly we tolerate that position when we cannot perceive our freedom or illusion of freedom, because for some time I want to talk about this one. So for example, when you are put into a jail, then you don't have your freedom. You cannot move according to your desires. You cannot act according to your desires. You don't enjoy the freedom of choice, right? You are forced to accept some rules. Or in the political or historical sense, if a nation is not free under some foreign influence, and we feel it like an oppression, right? So from this we can understand that freedom in general, even in the historical sense, even in the daily daily meaning, it's a very important part of human life. And this oppression, this we feel oppression. If we cannot enjoy our freedom, we feel oppression. But very soon we understand on our lectures and on our spiritual studies that in the material world we are not free. Although most of the people feel themselves very free. But as I mentioned before, we are always under some influence. In the Gita, it is said that everybody in this material world is under the influence of illusion. Everyone. So then the question comes, what is material life? And material life is not a free state of consciousness. This is not a free life. It is a forced life. The material life or bodily life lacks freedom. And you know that free choice, freedom is also a very, very delicate and very well discussed topic for spiritual people and also for devotees. And there is a nice story about a young man approaches a master and inquires about freedom. And he says, "Oh, master, can you teach me about freedom?" And the master says, "Yeah, I can teach you about freedom. So raise your leg." And the boy raises one leg. And he said, "Yes, master, I had done it." Then the master says, "Now raise your other leg." And then the boy says, "Oh, but master, I cannot raise my other leg as well." And then the master says, "You see, this is the limitation of your freedom. So maybe we want to raise both our legs as an exercise of freedom, but we cannot. So there is a limitation for freedom. Freedom of action is definitely limited. Freedom of speech, sometimes that's also limited. Freedom of thought is also limited by the conditions of your, let's say, ideals, of your cultural approach, of your education. So many factors are there. But spiritual freedom is something else. So if we understand that material life, in any case, this is a lack of freedom, then we have to be intelligent enough to search for a solution to find our spiritual freedom. And material life is conditioned by three main factors here. One is the Guna, the second is the karma, and the third is Maya. Guna, or the material qualities, they influence us by the impulse. So the Guna influence is the impulse. What makes you move? What inspires you to work? And material influence means selfish interest, right? So mostly humans are motivated by selfish desires. If it is good for you, then you act. If it is good for others, then you are more lazy. You are not so active. So this is one very strong material conditioning, that the gunas will inspire us to work, of course, on different scales, on different gradations. But in general, we can say that the guna motivation is selfish. Guna motivation is mostly selfish. Therefore, Srila Siddham Maharaj stressed so much the importance of dedication of the self, or surrender. And he speaks a lot about forget about yourself, right? So how is it possible to forget about ourselves if we dedicate ourselves, if our motivation is to serve others first, and then comes your own self? Right? So there's a big difference between devotional motivation and selfish motivation. So if we try to choose the desire of the great ones, people in general, devotees especially, the spiritual masters or the purified souls especially, and ultimately the divine couple, then we are in a safe track. Then our selfishness is definitely going down, and our dedicated motivation is manifested more and more. So it's very obvious. Instead of guna influence, we have to choose a divine influence. So forgetfulness of ourself also comes from Krishna, as he says, from me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So I think you understand all this guna influence. What is the meaning of the influence of the gunas against our spiritual freedom? And the second influence here is the karma influence. Karma means action, reaction. You have to reap the results of your action. So our path is determined by the previous steps we have taken. So again, this is not really a free state of existence until you are under this karma influence. So, of course, to achieve a non-karma action without reaction, or non-reactionary action, is very difficult. We have to come to the pure spiritual state in order to achieve that non-active, non-reactive action. But karma will curb our freedom by the reactions. So therefore, if we are purified of the karmic reactions, then we are more close to our freedom. And finally, the Maya influence will bring the third factor of influence. This is a very general factor, and the opposite of the influence of illusion is the clear sight. The clear sight in two ways, looking back and looking forward. So the clear sight, looking back, means you understand properly the action reaction of your past. You understand properly the results of your lifetimes, and you can slowly you can move to an optimum state of action. And looking forward, clear sight, looking forward means that you understand your spiritual future. You have an understanding about your reintegration. You have a clear desire about your spiritual or devotional moksha. So clear sight, looking forward. And it's better than looking backwards, because we cannot really change our past except as described by Srila Siddha Maharaj, who says, purifying our future is the best way to change our past. So please remember that. So the three factors that determine us, like guna, karma, and maya, and to achieve liberation from all these limiting factors, is against guna influence on motivation. You have to find a spiritual motivation. On the karma, you have to achieve a karma-free state. And on maya, we have to achieve a clear sight. Instead of illusion, to have a clear vision. A clear vision is very, very important. And again, we have to come back to examine the different types of moksha, because it is not only the 5 types of moksha that we discussed before, what are the positive states of final achievement, final liberation, because there are some other very special cases of moksha. Let's discuss a little bit about them. One special expression here is the krama moksha, which means step-by-step liberation. And it is described in a very special manner that you make 2 steps ahead and you make 1 step back. So a little forward towards perfection, and sometimes you make a few steps back. And then again, you go forward, and then again, you make a few steps back. So therefore, this kind of spiritual practice, when you try your best, you achieve something, but due to some conditioning, you are returning to some previous stage. This is called this step-by-step liberation. 2 steps ahead, 1 step backwards. Of course, this is not very much recommended, but if we are realistic, it happens that when you are strong in your spiritual practices, you make a little progress. And when you are weak, due to some laziness, due to some mistakes, due to a curse, or due to some aparad, then you fall back a little bit. And then again, you have to gain your power, and then you make, in good spirit, you make some progress. So this is a krama mukti. You achieve something and you lose some part of that achievement. As I mentioned before, in general, people understand moksha possible after leaving the body, so after death. But a very special type of moksha is possible while living. So this is called the jiva mukta state, liberated while living, still living in the body, in this body, but achieved perfection. So it's a very special type of moksha, a type of liberation, because in one sense, this is limited, but in the other sense, this is very highly appreciated. So in what sense is it limited? It's limited in the sense that still you live in this body, still you're limited by your body. Although the consciousness is perfected, but the bodily conditions are still there. Therefore, we see sometimes that even great saints or realized yogis, they suffer from some illness, but heavy diseases. And for a long time, I was thinking, why? How is it possible that fully realized persons suffer diseases? And I think this is the answer. First of all, they have to accomplish that journey which was begun in this lifetime. So it's a very obvious and simple explanation. But another more precious explanation for us, that God wants to show their greatness, that even if they are sick, even if they have to tolerate some very harsh disease, they are not disturbed in their spiritual practices. So you see, from the material point of view, some suffering is there, but from the spiritual point of view, this is also part of their glory. Very, very strange combination. So this is part of this jiva mukta state, that whatever you have started in this lifetime, like karmic action reaction that you have to burn up, you have to burn it up. But of course, the higher you go, the less results and the less difficulties are there. Mm. And from the other point of view, our teachers even declare that the perfection achieved in your meditation, or the spiritual body achieved in your meditation, if you meditate over your spiritual services, your body is higher than fully achieved spiritual position after the death, after leaving the body. So I think it's very, very interesting to consider these points. And definitely this Jiva Mukta state means that there is no return. Mm? Such persons have reached the point of no return. Mm? So this is the last lifetime for them in the Jiva Mukta state. And when finally they are released from the bondage of the body, they will achieve total and ultimate liberation. So if you ask me, what is my mukti? What is my moksha? I can tell you something personal. My moksha, my individual moksha is sadhusanga. Other ways we call it satsang, or the company of the devotees. And sat sang means sat, eternal or real, sangha, association, company. So the real company means you are reintegrated back to your original spiritual relationships. Satsang is our freedom. Satsang, sadhusanga, is our moksha, right? Because it helps us to be reintegrated into the divine reality. Therefore, we appreciate sadhusanga so high. It's not simply a theological fact for us or a very important part of our spiritual practices, or a sacrament in our tradition. No, this is our moksha. This is our liberation. Devotees, pure devotees, will bring us the chance of liberation, and our fellow devotees will help us to integrate into their company. And as they belong to the divine couple, if we are integrated into their company, we shall also belong to their divine company. So therefore we can say, from the devotional point of view, our moksha is the association of pure devotees. Our moksha is the sadhusanga. And finally, let me mention one story. You have probably heard this story about a sage who is delivering blessings to all the people who approach him. He's on a marketplace, so there's a big audience, a big gathering, and they are very curious to hear and listen to the different blessings that this sage delivers to people. So first, a prince approaches him for some blessings. And our sage will say, "Oh, live long." Oh, the crowd is very satisfied. "Oh, so nice, long life, young prince, long life, beautiful. Yeah, that's a real blessing." Next, a yogi comes, and the sage will say, "Oh, don't live long, die soon." Oh, the audience is shocked. Die soon? What kind of message is this? What kind of blessings is this? Not long life, but quick dying? Oh, maybe our sage is wrong. And then a butcher comes. And then sage will give a even more special blessing to him. And his message now is, don't live, don't die. The audience is perplexed a little bit. This is very strange blessings. Don't die, all right, this is nice. Don't live, what kind of message is this? They are fully perplexed. They don't understand what is happening, while finally a Vaishnava comes. Vaishnava is chanting the holy names happily, almost in a dancing mood, and he approaches also the sage, and the sage will tell him again a very special message. He says, whether you live or you die. So now finally the audience is fully upset, and they question our sage. How can you give so different blessings to these people? Blessings is blessings. So why not the same blessing to all? And then our sage starts to explain. What is the duty of a prince? For a prince, his chance for perfection is to practice dharma. He has to become a righteous king. And in order to accomplish all the duties of a king, he needs to live a long life. So live long, this is the best message, the best blessing for a prince. Yes, everybody agreed. Yes, for a young prince, beautiful, long life, good, we accept. Now, what is the purpose of a yogi? Asked the sage. The purpose of the yogi is to achieve perfection, to achieve moksha. Yes, you see how to achieve moksha. If he quickly burns up all the karma in this lifetime, if he quickly achieves his liberation, so therefore I told him, don't live long, die soon. For a yogi, the body is only a burden. So for him, it is better to be released from the body. All right, we can also accept, said the audience. But what about the third message that you gave? Well, for the butcher I told, don't live. Because if he is living, continuing his bad practice, violence, he will incur more debt. He will incur more karma upon his head and give more suffering to others. But again, if he dies, he has to pay all the karma that he had accumulated. So for him, life is not good, death is not good either. Then the audience thought, well, maybe our sage is right. But what about the fourth message? What about the fourth blessings? Well, a Vaishnava is in a very special position because the motto of a Vaishnava is, if I live, you are with me. If I die, I am with you. So for him, living or dying is the same. There's no difference between living or dying. Living in the body, then his full meditation is with the divine couple. If he gives up the bodily existence, he will return to the eternal leelas. For him, there's no difference between life and death. And then finally, the audience was very satisfied. And they understood that according to the ideals of people, all different, although the blessings were fully different, yet all the blessings were very appropriate. Live long, die soon, don't live, don't die, or whether you live or you die, it doesn't matter. So therefore, we can say that our deliverance, our moksha is a sadhu sangha. And if we are fortunate, then next life, and in eternal life also, we shall be able to associate with pure devotees, saintly devotees. And the best way to achieve that is to qualify our life and to become pure devotees for ourselves. So thank you so much for your attention. I wish all good success in your spiritual endeavors. And I think we understood something about moksha according to the Srimad Bhagavatam as a very important factor in general for spiritual persons, and as a side effect for those who practice devotional love. Nevertheless, to have it as an ideal, I think it's very proper even for a devotee, because liberation means reintegration into our divine spiritual position, where we can serve better, where we can come closer to the divine couple. So again, I wish all good success in your spiritual endeavors and to achieve this beautiful, beautiful ideal. And see you next time on our next discussion. Thank you so much. Jai.
Shri Gurudeva ki.
Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai.
Jai Ho.
Jai.
Oh, you are also here, Yashatka. Kaksi.
Dandavat Gurudeva.
Jai.
I'm fine.
Good.
Hopefully you're fine too.
Yeah, better and better, of course.
Jai.
Thank you.
Haribo Gurudev, I'm very sorry I couldn't come to see you in Sofia, but
No,
what to do?
don't be sorry, because there was not so much chance to see me last time. Sorry. Somehow I feel it was not really approved by our Lord. And but again, I think that somehow it helped us to come closer. Although in separation, we can come closer. So this is according to Mahaprabhu philosophy,
Yes.
right? Jai. I'm very happy that you are around. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe next time you will come soon and everything will be okay?
Must be, for sure. We pray for that. And I think, yes, this is something important. I think under these troubled conditions, we were so much united in the spirit. So many prayers were going on. We were joining each other, irrespective of countries and kilometers and distances. We were united very much in the spirit. So I'm very, very grateful for all of you who joined these healing meditations, because this is something to do when there is a need. Thank you. Oh my God. And Bhagavat, you are better?
Yes, I am almost as good as new.
Oh my God. Somehow it's a very, very difficult feeling that I bring only trouble to the devotees. Not nice.
It is probably disguised as trouble, but it is a blessing.
Oof. Yeah, sometimes the blessing doesn't come in such a shape that we expect, but we never know how it works. Yeah. Anyway, I thank you again for your help, because that was very much welcome last time in Sofia, and sorry for the trouble.
I am very happy I could do something for you.
Yeah.
You have done so much for all of us.
Yeah. And Manohari, may I have a question? Oh, is it still recorded?
Only
Може
for
ли да спрем
devotees.
всички записи?